The first 6 months of the year aren't just a phase. They work like a code. Everything you decide, tolerate, and build during this time sets the tone for the rest of the year. A lot of people don't realize it, but prosperity doesn't show up randomly. It responds to the identity you step into at the start of the cycle. Those who begin the year on autopilot usually end up repeating the same results. But those who start with intention create a silent advantage. 2026 won't be different by chance. It'll only be different if you make different choices, while most people are still adjusting, postponing, waiting for the right moment. Wealth, success, and prosperity are drawn to people who show up early, when there's still room to build momentum. The first 6 months are fertile ground where everything gets decided, even if the results only show up later. If you want to use this period to change the direction of your life, you're in the right place. Before we dive in, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and stay with me. What you do in the first few months of 2026 could define everything that comes after. Step 1. Decide who you need to become before setting goals. Most people start the year by setting goals, but they skip the most important part, who they need to become in order to sustain those goals. Wealth, prosperity, and success aren't just results. They're consequences of a well-defined identity. If you step into the first 6 months of 2026 without clarity about who you're building, you risk repeating old patterns, even with new goals. I learned this the hard way. For years, I created flawless goal lists, but deep down, I kept thinking, reacting, and acting like the same old me. The result was predictable. I started excited, ended up frustrated. That's when I realized the problem wasn't the goals. It was the identity trying to reach them. Everything changed when I asked myself one simple question. What kind of woman would naturally live the life I desire? From there, I started working on myself first. I adjusted my posture, my habits, my decisions, even the way I spoke to myself. And surprisingly, the results started showing up with less effort, because now there was alignment between who I was and what I wanted. The first 6 months of 2026 need to be used to lock in this new identity. It's not about doing more. It's about doing things differently. When you change who you are, success stops being a distant dream and becomes a natural consequence. Comment below, I'm becoming the woman who can sustain the life I desire. That sentence is your first commitment to your new reality. Step 2. Organize your finances before trying to grow them. There's no such thing as sustainable prosperity built on financial chaos. A lot of people want to make more money, but still don't know how to handle what they already have. And that creates a silent block. Life gets the message that you're not ready for more. The first 6 months of 2026 should be used to create order, because order is the language of abundance. It took me a while to understand that. For a long time, I said I wanted to grow financially, but avoided looking at my numbers. I spent without awareness, made emotional decisions, kept pushing everything for later. And the more I avoided, the more anxious I felt. Until the day I chose to face it. I opened my accounts, wrote everything down, and finally understood exactly how much my life cost. It wasn't comfortable, but it was liberating. For the first time, I felt like money wasn't controlling me. I was in control. When you create financial clarity, something shifts inside you. Your posture gets stronger, your decisions more confident, your choices more strategic. Money starts to flow better, because you finally know where it needs to go. Prosperity doesn't like constant improvisation. It likes direction. The first 6 months of 2026 are perfect for that. Organizing, planning, structuring, not to limit yourself, but to build a solid foundation where growth can happen without fear. Comment below, I create order to attract abundance. That sentence marks the moment you stop running from money and start leading your financial life. Step 3. Cut without guilt. Whatever holds back your growth. The first 6 months of 2026 call for a decision most people avoid. Cutting. Cutting habits, relationships, commitments, and patterns that no longer align with who you're becoming. Prosperity doesn't grow in cluttered soil. Anything that takes up space without creating progress drains your energy, and energy is the invisible currency of success. I had to learn that the hard way. There was a time when I felt constantly busy, but never really moving forward. A packed schedule made me feel productive, but in reality I was just exhausted. I said yes out of fear of disappointing people, held on to connections out of habit, clung to routines that no longer made sense, until one day I realized I wasn't stuck because of a lack of opportunity. I was stuck because of an overload of useless things. That's when I started cutting, and it wasn't easy. I cut conversations that always ended in complaints. I cut tasks that brought no real return. I cut versions of myself that were constantly trying to please. At first came guilt, but shortly after came something stronger: relief. My time became clearer, my mind lighter. My energy started flowing toward what truly mattered. People who thrive understand this early. Saying no is a growth strategy. Every time you cut something out, you make room for something better. And the first 6 months of 2026 are the perfect moment for this kind of strategic cleanup, while most people are still stuck in the same old cycles. There's a delicate point in the prosperity journey that few people talk about. Even after cutting what slows you down, organizing your priorities, and trying to do everything right, many women still carry a quiet sense of insecurity. It's like there's a constant fear of not having enough, a wave of anxiety around money, or a lingering doubt about the future. You try to grow, but it doesn't feel solid. And it's not because you're not trying hard. It's because no one ever taught you how to build a secure, healthy relationship with money. When that foundation is missing, every plan feels fragile. You move forward, but cautiously. You make decisions, but fear messing up. You want to thrive, but still feel tied down by worries that drain your energy. And it's exhausting to live like that, always trying to control the future without ever feeling truly at peace. Prosperity can't hold when money is still a source of stress, guilt, or insecurity. That's exactly why I created the Wealth Code, a guide designed to transform your relationship with money from the inside out, helping you build real financial security and live with the ease that comes from knowing you can choose your own path. The method is simple, accessible, and practical, because thriving shouldn't feel heavy or complicated. It should feel natural. If you know it's time to strengthen that inner foundation so you can grow with more confidence and peace, the link to the Wealth Code is in the first pinned comment. Step 4. Turn discipline into identity, not effort. There's a defining point in the first 6 months of 2026. Stop treating discipline like a sacrifice and start living it as part of your identity. Prosperous people don't wake up every day wondering if they'll do what needs to be done. They do it because it's simply part of who they are. The most common mistake is trying to win at life with willpower, when real power lies in quiet consistency. It took me a while to get this. For years, I relied on motivation. When I was inspired, I did a lot. When I wasn't, I did nothing. That cycle left me drained and unstable. Until one day, I realized it wasn't a lack of ability, it was a lack of identity. I still saw myself as someone who was trying, not someone who simply does. The shift happened when I stopped negotiating with myself. I decided certain actions were no longer optional. Studying, managing my finances, taking care of my body, keeping my word. At first, it felt uncomfortable, but over time, something changed. I stopped feeling forced and started feeling strong. Discipline stopped being a burden and became my structure. In the first 6 months of 2026, you need to build that foundation. Not with grand gestures, but with repeated habits. That's what sustains wealth, success, and prosperity in the long run. It's not about intensity. It's about consistency. Comment below. Discipline is part of who I am. That sentence reinforces the identity that drives lasting results, even when no one's watching. Step 5. Make decisions with the long term in mind, not for immediate relief. One of the biggest differences between people who thrive and people who stay stuck is how they make decisions. Those who build wealth, success, and stability don't choose what's most comfortable right now. They choose what will support the life they want in the future. That's exactly why the first 6 months of 2026 are so important. They train your mind to shift from short-term thinking to long-term vision. I noticed this when I started observing my own choices. So often I'd go with the easier path, spend money to relieve stress, postpone tough decisions, avoid important conversations, trade consistency for short-term pleasure. In the moment, it brought relief, but in the long run, it kept me stuck. That's when I realized every small decision was shaping the kind of life I was creating, even without realizing it. So I changed the question. Instead of asking, what do I want right now? I started asking, what would the woman I want to become choose? That simple shift changed everything. I began investing more in myself, saying no to distractions that pulled me off track, making choices that weren't always easy, but always aligned with the future I wanted to build. Thinking long-term isn't about deprivation. It's about self-respect. It's about understanding that prosperity is the result of consistent decisions made when no one is watching. The first 6 months of 2026 should be used to train that mindset, because it impacts not only your financial results, but the overall quality of your life. Comment below, I choose what sustains my future. That phrase marks the moment you stop living for short-term relief and start building a solid, prosperous tomorrow. Step 6. Protect your energy like a strategic asset. One of the smartest decisions you can make in the first 6 months of 2026 is to stop treating your energy like it's unlimited. Prosperous people understand early on, energy is a resource, maybe the most valuable one of all. It's not time that runs out first, it's energy. And without it, no strategy works. I only realized this when I started living in a state of constant exhaustion. It wasn't a lack of opportunities or ideas, it was burnout. I said yes to everything, got involved in problems that weren't mine, absorbed other people's emotions like it was my duty. By the end of the day, there was barely anything left of me for what truly mattered. That's when I understood. It wasn't a lack of ability. It was a lack of protection. The turning point came when I started treating my energy the same way I'd treat my money. Before saying yes to anything, I'd ask, does this energize me or drain me? I became more selective about where I put my attention, who I shared my plans with, and how much time I gave to things that didn't move me forward. At first, I felt guilty. Then I felt something stronger, powerful. When you protect your energy, your clarity grows. Your decisions get sharper. Your focus deepens. And prosperity responds to that. Because success isn't built in constant exhaustion. It's built in conscious presence. The first 6 months of 2026 are the perfect time for this fine-tuning. Not to shut yourself off from the world, but to show up in it with intelligence. Those who learn to preserve their own energy build wealth with less wear and far more consistency. Comment below. My energy is a valuable asset. That phrase marks the moment you stop draining yourself to prove something and start growing with intention and balance. Step 7. Build a conscious, not emotional relationship with money. The first 6 months of 2026 demand financial maturity, not in the sense of earning more, but in how you handle the money that flows through your life. Many people sabotage their own prosperity because they mix emotion with financial decisions. They spend to relieve anxiety, save out of fear, avoid checking their numbers out of guilt, and all of that creates a silent cycle of instability. I lived that pattern for a long time. Every time money came in, I felt both relief and tension. Relief that I could breathe, tension from fear of losing it. I either spent too quickly or held on too tightly. There was never real balance. Until I realized something simple. Money doesn't have to be an emotional trigger. It should be a conscious tool. Once I started separating emotion from decision-making, everything changed. I began looking at my numbers without judgment. I stopped using money to compensate for frustrations. I started planning with clarity, not fear. And interestingly, that's when money started lasting longer, working better, and flowing more freely. Prosperity loves emotional stability. The first 6 months of 2026 are the perfect time to build this new relationship. It's not about deprivation. It's about self-respect. It's not about being overly controlling. It's about understanding. When you treat money with consciousness, it stops being a source of stress and becomes a source of security. Comment below, I handle money consciously. That phrase marks the beginning of a mature, stable, and prosperous relationship with your resources. Step 8. Stop waiting for validation to move forward. One of the biggest blocks to prosperity is the need for validation. Many people only feel safe to grow when someone approves, confirms, or encourages them. But wealth, success, and leadership don't come from approval. They come from decision. The first 6 months of 2026 require you to stop waiting for external signals to take action and start trusting your own judgment more. I realized this when I noticed how often I delayed decisions, waiting for some invisible okay. I waited for someone to agree, waited for the perfect timing, waited to feel completely secure. And while I waited, opportunities passed. Less prepared people moved forward. Doors closed. Not because I wasn't capable, but because I still needed someone to validate my worth. The turning point came when I understood that no one else will live with the consequences of my choices. Once I owned that, I started acting with more confidence. I made decisions without over-explaining, moved forward without asking for permission, and trusted more in what felt right to me. And interestingly, that's when I started earning more respect. Prosperity responds to quiet self-confidence. When you act without needing to prove anything, the world notices. The first 6 months of 2026 should be used to strengthen that internal posture. Not out of arrogance, but maturity. Those who learn to validate themselves from within no longer depend on applause to grow. Comment below, I trust my decisions. That phrase marks the moment you stop waiting for permission to live the life you want. Step 9. Create a growth rhythm you can actually sustain. A common mistake for those who want to thrive fast is confusing intensity with progress. Many people start the year going all in, overdo it for a few weeks, and then vanish. Wealth, success, and prosperity don't come from energy bursts. They come from a consistent, intelligent, and sustainable pace. The first 6 months of 2026 are meant for finding that rhythm. I've been through the cycle of intensity. I'd start excited, full of plans, take on more than I could handle. At first, it felt like everything was moving fast. But as soon as exhaustion hit, everything crumbled. Projects stalled, habits fell apart, frustration came back. Until I understood something simple but deep. Growing too fast without structure is just another form of self-sabotage. The shift happened when I stopped asking, "How much can I do?" and started asking, "What can I sustain?" I adjusted my routine, cut the excess, set realistic schedules, and defined clear priorities. And for the first time, I was able to stay consistent without burning out. Growth started slower, but it was much more solid. And over time, the results began to stack. Prosperity likes predictability. When you build a rhythm that respects your energy, your mind, and your limits, you stop living in start and stop cycles and enter a steady flow of evolution. The first 6 months of 2026 are the perfect time for that. Build habits, adjust expectations, and create a structure strong enough to hold success when it arrives. Comment below, "I grow at a pace I can sustain." That phrase reinforces the maturity of someone who understands that consistency beats speed. Step 10. Decide that 2026 won't be just another year. There's a quiet moment when everything changes. Not when the results show up, but when you decide, once and for all, that you're not going to live the same life anymore. Wealth, prosperity, and success begin right there, with the internal decision to stop negotiating with mediocrity, with procrastination, and with the old version of you that always finds an excuse to stay the same. That turning point happened for me when I realized it wasn't a lack of opportunity that held me back. It was a lack of decision. I made plans, sure, but always left a door open to quit. I'd say we'll see, maybe later, when the time is right. Until I finally got it. The right time never comes for those who don't decide to be consistent. That's when I chose, clearly, that this would be my year. Not out of hope, but out of posture. From that moment, my choices changed. I stopped treating my goals like wishes, and started treating them like commitments. I stopped waiting for motivation and started acting out of alignment. And slowly, life began to respond. Not all at once, but consistently. The first 6 months of 2026 need to carry that decision. Not a hype-fueled New Year's promise, but a quiet agreement with yourself. I'm not turning back. When you truly decide, your actions align, your energy organizes, and opportunities start showing up more often. Comment below, 2026 is the year I fully step into who I am. That sentence seals your commitment to the woman you've chosen to become, not just imagined. The first 6 months of 2026 aren't just a warm-up. They're the foundation. Defining who you need to become, organizing your finances, cutting what holds you back, turning discipline into identity, thinking long-term, protecting your energy, building a mature relationship with money, stopping the search for validation, creating a sustainable pace, and deciding with no way back. These are the steps that build wealth, prosperity, and success from the inside out. None of this is about doing more. It's about doing with intention. Those who use this time with awareness create an advantage that the rest of the year simply confirms. If this video resonated with you, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and comment below which of these steps you're going to apply first. Because prosperity doesn't respond to those who just watch. It responds to those who decide to act.